Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Environmental Consulting and Management Special Interest Group session today. Thank you all for attending. We have great speakers and topics to discuss today. And if you have any questions, please use the audience Q&A on the side on Slido. And let's start with our introduction.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Scott Woods. I'm a GIS professional, a little more than 20 years of experience. I'm currently working with power engineers, and most of my experience has been in the environmental and engineering realm, providing GIS support services as a part of their projects.
How you guys doing? My name is Jeff Pearson. I work for Colliers Engineering, and I have a lot of experience with environmental permitting, environmental compliance, as well as a strong GIS technical and software development background.
Good morning. My name is Dan Boudreau, and I'm the Geospatial Systems Lead with GZA. I spend quite a bit of my time working with our environmental folks.
Hi, I'm Janine Latham. I'm with Weston Solutions. I'm our Geospatial Technical Director for the company. Been doing GIS and integrating in environmental firms for close to 20 years now, and primarily specialize in emergency response and time-critical data management in our company.
All right, that's great. Thank you all for introducing. And I introduce myself. My name is Mehmet Secilmis. I work for Esri for the last 5 years in the AEC and environmental industry account manager. And I come from environmental engineering and GIS background. So today's interest group meeting, we're going to be talking about environmental consulting and management. And then we will have some discussion topics to cover. And then if you have any questions, feel free to ask along the way. Just to give you a little bit of background. So you saw the plenary session and nice images there. So this year's theme is GIS, creating a sustainable future. All environmental topics, as you see, from natural resources to climate change and environmental conservation efforts. These are the things that you do as an environmental consultant day to day, and you help public agencies, private sector with those. And then some of the examples that Jack shared in the plenary are nice work of GIS professionals in many fields, including environmental, from biodiversity mapping to measuring some plant health, to monitoring various places in the world, and natural resources management, managing their natural resources and using the advanced analysis, advanced functionality of GIS technology in different areas, as well as conservation assessments and planning for governments, for nonprofits in various organizations. All of these things you do as an environmental consultant and GIS professionals. And then Jack Dangerman, our founder, selected some for the plenary session, which are great examples. And let me tell you about how we started the environmental GIS community, or how we're focusing to the environmental consulting community. So this year, we started with a panel discussion, listening to you about the industry challenges and industry needs. Our first event was in January, was a panel discussion of 5 industry experts. We talked about environmental consulting needs and GIS use, and I talked about the trends. And if you missed that webinar recording is available. I can share that with you. And then out of that event, we have written a blog post, GIS Trends for Environmental Consulting. And it's a blog post that we can share with you. It's a summary. And in that event, we identified some topics for future webinars. So 5 topics we identified for the environmental consulting industry. And we had 1 event after that for field applications. We still have 4 more in the following months and a year. So if you have experience in those other areas, please reach out to us. We can have you speak at one of our webinars. So our second event was in April. It was about field operations, how GIS is helping in the field operations for environmental projects. We had speakers from AECOM and SCS engineers. They shared their experiences in these areas. And specifically SCS engineers, they showed us how they transformed their operations from field books and checklists to mobile field apps very efficiently in their landfill operation projects, in their landfill contamination management operations. And they had integrated lots of data from other resources, and also they used drones and sensors, interestingly, and it's becoming very popular. We also had AECOM speak about their cloud-based GIS platform, how they used it in environmental projects, and how they used it mobile and web-based tools to enhance their projects and operations in the field. And they've been heavily using drones and LiDAR technology. Thank you to both speakers from the April event. And today we have 4 great speakers, and we will be talking about how environmental consulting firms can successfully leverage modern GIS technology. It's a topic for all. I come from environmental and GIS background. It's changed a lot. It was only desktop mapping, turned into WebGIS, field apps, advanced analytics, AI, IoT, and drones. Like, it changed quite a bit. So there are new challenges. Environmental professionals, they are the early adopters of the GIS technology, but lots of things change. And now we need to tackle those challenges. So we have 4 speakers, and we're going to be talking about common technical challenges, perception and awareness of GIS within environmental consulting firms, and then some business opportunities we're going to be talking about. And I'd like to start with a poll question. Let me just stop and just ask that poll question, live poll question. So I want to ask you, what is your top challenge for leveraging modern GIS technology to its full potential? All right, so it's going to be live, and share my screen here. And if you can vote from the web browser, and you can also use the website to vote. Share the results with you. Okay, I can stop that and share the results. And as you see here, the top one is non-GIS employees' misunderstanding of the GIS technology. Second one is training education, and then lack of executive understanding and support, and lack of vision, and then technical difficulties. So that's how it came out, and we will be talking about it. Actually, we will be talking about it in 3 different topics. There are 3 categories: technical issues, perception and awareness, and business opportunities. I want to start with another poll for the technical part specifically. And I'll start this poll right now. And what is your top technical GIS challenge? Integration of ArcGIS with current workflows, migration to ArcGIS Pro, integration with other management systems, using WebGIS efficiently, and keeping up with the software updates and changes. What is your top technical challenge that you see? Okay, here we go. So let's see the results now. All right, the top challenge is integration with other data management systems. And the second one is keeping up with software updates and changes. And the third one is migration to Pro. Thank you for those joining, Paul. And now we will be talking about the technical challenges. And I'd like to go into the technical part and ask our panelists. First, I want to ask Daniel and Scott about the technical challenges part to share their experiences and insights.
Sure. So, what you see here is something we might call issues and outcomes, or the kinds of things you might experience if you don't address the 5 challenges that were listed previous to the slide. Starting with maximizing ROI. I mean, obviously, this is probably something we've all had to deal with. We all invest significant amounts of money, not only in technology, but there are issues in maximizing ROI in other kinds of resources like your staff. So we'll get into this a little bit more. Second thing I would like to point out here is probably a pretty common issue or outcome is that of data silos. Interesting to see the poll question was talking about integration of other systems, that the leading answer, we are going to talk about that a little bit more, but data silos and data duplication. I think we all deal with this problem, particularly when you're dealing with integration of multiple platforms. Inefficiencies related to cost. So not only inefficiencies related to cost of software, but in time. So if you don't have well thought out processes, tends to burn a lot of hours unnecessarily on jobs. And then finally, a big opportunity is that around not only just leveraging the capabilities of the technology, because as we all know, the ArcGIS platform has lots of breadth, but also lots of depth, lots of capabilities. I think we all struggle with leveraging those capabilities in a systematic and organized way, but also identifying opportunities to expand services, to further monetize the return on your investment. So what we've identified here is a series of recommendations. They're not meant to be filled with a whole lot of detail. We can talk about this more as we go along, but the first thing we'd like to talk about is workflow integration. In my experience, it's very helpful to, when you're trying to integrate this technology and existing workflows, is to define the needs. So you can think of this in terms of developing a mini needs assessment. So you can identify discrete processes in those workflows, and then to diagram those workflows out. I think we all struggle with finding time just to document things in general, but as the geospatial systems lead at GZA, I'm personally responsible for managing how the technology is integrated. So I strongly encourage people to develop workflow diagrams that help you to work through the thought process and identify discrete tasks that you can tackle and integrate in this technology.
Excellent. And this is from an ArcGIS Pro perspective, I think it's great to see that it's not the #1 technical issue for folks out there. ArcGIS Pro is obviously the future of desktop GIS, where Esri is investing their resources to develop new functionality and integrate new components based on our needs. It is important, I think, to also note that many probably saw this week that ArcMap will be sunsetting in 2026. I think the important thing to note is, albeit it's sunsetting in 2026 first quarter, you can look at the product life cycle and you can see it going into extended support as early as 2023, I believe. So I really encourage people to continue to move forward and migrate forward with Pro, primarily to solve some of these challenges that we talked about new workflows, integration with other data sources, sort of enabling the web GIS platform. One note I would also make regarding Pro is as folks begin to make that migration, make sure that you're coordinating with your IT folks, ensuring that your system requirements, both at the local level or via cloud deployments, is sufficient to be able to run and operate ArcGIS Pro effectively. I really think the key to the ArcGIS Pro migration, and again, it's great to see a lot of people have already made that migration. ArcGIS Pro is to me, it's a pretty friendly and open environment. The new ribbon framework, the project-based framework, really provides some really interesting opportunities for us to better manage, better distribute our data. My recommendation is really to start out small. You don't have to just jump right in. Obviously, some people work very well by just jumping in and hands-on, playing with it and getting a feel, but I really would encourage those who've not yet begun that migration process to take advantage of the Esri online resources, some phenomenal free training sessions that are there. There's also a substantial amount of information on the web that can really help you jumpstart your understanding. and basically just break it down into your common, components, whether that be standard mapping, data editing, analysis, break it down into the components and work through it pretty logically. I think again, the primary benefits of Pro is the new ribbon style interface, again, the project-based organization. And some of the other things you should probably focus on are kind of really the key differences between the ArcMap product and the ArcGIS Pro product. That'll help you make that transition. And then it's also important to really kind of understand the new terminology that goes along with ArcGIS Pro. The other thing I might recommend is that for those organizations that have either started or have early adopters of the ArcGIS Pro platform, is to really, for those folks to be champions across your organization, to create how-to documents, to create some short videos, and really help try to personalize that training for your teams moving forward with the Pro. In essence, again, in embracing Pro, migrating to Pro, it's really going to help your organizations to take on some of these new opportunities with enhanced workflows, streamlined workflows, work processes. And really, for the most part, it's going to really help drive new services and efficiency, specifically in the areas of mapping, analysis, and integration with web services.
Outstanding. So from a systems integration perspective, we at GZA are pretty much up to our eyeballs in this process right now. Probably a very common situation amongst all of you. And in our case, we're integrating Enterprise GIS with a number of other platforms. Some of our platforms associated with our financial project management, like with Deltek, for example. We're pretty deep users of EQUIS, as well as several other platforms, web platforms such as Leapfrog, for example. So you're going to start to see a theme happening here. Basically, what I would recommend is when you're seeking to integrate these systems together is you really need to start with the business needs and define what those drivers are in your business. And from there, I'd start to examine those needs and those workflows and develop functional specifications. So we leverage Enterprise GIS quite a bit in integrating these other platforms. And without going too far down the rabbit hole on the technical aspects, this would typically involve things like employing ETL technologies, maybe FME Workbench or something like that, direct connections through ODBC, or even setting up relationship classes with database views inside Enterprise Geodatabase. But what I would recommend here is that you start with the business needs and start to identify discrete integrations and craft a functional specification around that to determine first what it is you want to do, and from there you can start to develop the how. So I'll turn it back to Scott to react to WebGIS.
Oh, sorry about that. It was me. Well, obviously, as Mehmet mentioned, the GIS has significantly changed recently. We've gone from this desktop GIS mapping sort of centric model to WebGIS, where it's really opening up just amazing opportunities for us as GIS professionals to really show that value, drive business efficiency. And in doing so, I guess I would state that before you really jump in and start going, it's really important to understand the use cases of WebGIS, how the different tools that are available to us through dashboards and story maps and custom maps to be able to develop scenarios that guide your implementation of WebGIS. Really focused on your audiences, who you're working with. Those audiences can be internal. They could be very specific to supporting project teams or practice groups in the management of their data and distribution of their data. But also, these systems could be used externally with your clients. The ArcGIS, our web GIS provides the opportunity to extend services to your clients as standalone applications within the web, specifically tailored to their needs. The third case where the web GIS is coming into play is at the project level, being able to share and distribute data, analytics, any information, any spatial content across your project teams to help drive engagement and collaboration. And a lot of times those external web applications also are being utilized by the public to help them, bring awareness to your efforts, your projects. And I just really encourage everybody to continue to explore the advantages of the web GIS capabilities.
So the final bullet here under technology management, in many ways, this could be the first bullet. It's sort of an overarching idea. And, we all, I think, know that, GIS was, case of ArcGIS was primarily a desktop application for many years. That's part of the problem in this perception. We'll talk more about perception later. But GIS was largely treated as being this other thing off to the side, separate from IT. That's changing within our organization, and it's changing throughout the industry, because it really, IT, or I should say GIS technology, really needs to be closely aligned with an overall IT strategy and a roadmap. And that's what we're doing at GZA, is developing an overarching IT GIS strategic plan and a roadmap. And you really need to do that because, as we all know, given the breadth and depth of technology, you need to pay attention to things like upgrade schedules and maintenance schedules. We've developed an approach where we have a schedule that we adhere to, an annual schedule with different tasks that occur throughout the year, broken out by quarter. So for example, typically at the end of the fourth quarter, that's when we'll do our upgrade of ArcGIS Enterprise, in between Christmas and New Year's, when most people are out of the office. We also have a maintenance schedule throughout the year that we adhere to. So we'll typically do a desktop upgrade for our users, usually around August or sometime right after the UC. So we're looking at doing that very soon. You should also, within that schedule, is to plan for things like testing and development. Have a plan for testing and development. So, we like to, as we go through these other things like workflow integration and systems integration and looking for use cases for developing internal and external web applications, is we like to go through a process where we stand those things up in a testing environment. So that would be having we have a sandbox environment and a server that allows us to test these things off to the side and treat them like projects, and put out prototypes where our internal users can react to those things. We can gather information about those, and employing an agile approach, those applications and workflows can evolve. But we have a schedule set up, and that's all part of, like I said, an overall IT and GIS roadmap and strategy. I'd also recommend doing that because it'll help you to forecast. As we all know, technology changes frequently. And it's not just that it changes frequently, the rate of change is accelerating. So it's getting to be very challenging staying on top of software updates. That was one of the leading answers in the previous survey question. And so it's helpful to forecast and look ahead. Esri does a great job in announcing upcoming technology or upgrades. So it'd be good to plan for those things and try to fit that into your schedule so you can allocate the resources. The final thing is, under an IT or GIS roadmap and a strategic plan, is to account for training. I think that was another big one, popular answer in the previous survey question. I think we all struggle with training. So having a good plan and carving out some time and trying to cobble together maybe collections of Esri courses and maybe some of your own training materials. We like to develop short snippet videos of a minute or two with little how-tos on how to do certain things, and to educate our staff on best practices and standards within our organization. So we meld together GZA's processes with Esri's best practices to craft our own customized training materials. So I definitely recommend developing some kind of a roadmap and plan to manage your technology.
Thank you. And great. We have one question on this topic. Actually, maybe let me read the question. Does anyone else find a lack of subject matter understanding a challenge to designing or setting up projects in GIS? And what is a good solution for this?
All right, I'm
Any
gonna take a
panelists?
stab to react
Sure.
to that. So one of the things that we do at GZA, and this gets back to all the bullets you see here, is we've developed a relationship. So I, as a geospatial systems lead, you know, I manage technology. I've been doing this for 30 years, enterprise GIS and whatnot. But it is a challenge in engaging the subject matter experts. So what I would say is, out of 200 users at GZA, we've got, you know, probably easily 75% of those are wetland scientists, the geotechnical engineers. They're engineers and scientists where GIS for them is one tool in a vast toolbox of desktop applications. So what we do is we work directly with our technical practice leads, and they will tell us what they're trying to do in their workflows, what we're contractually obligated to do for field data collection or generating reports and mapping. And we collaborate together to refine the technology and workflows to meet their needs. So it's really, it needs to be in some ways led by your technical practice leads.
Great, thank you. All right, so we're going to continue with the next challenge with another poll question. What is the main understanding about GIS? So I'll start the poll question here in a second. I just activated the poll. What is the main misunderstanding, the perception of GIS within your firm, within your organization? GIS is for making maps, too complex, expensive, not integrated with other systems, and not accurate. Which one is the main misunderstanding about GIS at your organization?
This is really fun to see because I can see the one. There's like one big one.
Yes.
We all feel it.
All right, user votes. I'm going to close it in a minute, in a few seconds. All right, I think we're solid there. We share the results with you, and no, without a difficult guess, it's GIS for making maps. So that's the results, 68%, and the second one is 21%. It's too complex and expensive. Interesting. So now I turn to Janine, and what are your thoughts about this?
You know, it's not shocking, right? That's the perception, not just within our industry, and I think our firms, but also, you know, out in the market too. You know, when people ask me, I've been doing GIS for 20 years. I've stopped saying that every time somebody asks me, from my parents to, you know, other colleagues, you know, what do you do? Well, I make maps. I finally stopped saying that because we do make maps, but it helped, you know, further build on that perception of that we're just map makers, you know, which really leads into this perception and awareness, specifically within our industry and within our firms. We're right now at Weston in the middle of a geospatial strategy build, and you know, this process, which we've been doing for over a year, really opened up the conversation to folks outside of just the GIS practice and our IT practice, but you know, into our operations and into our sales and strategy and development, you know, really understanding the difference of what GIS is from a function versus a service. I think that is the biggest, you know, perception and awareness challenge that we're really up against, you know, really helping folks understand within our technical side and also our operation and sales side, you know, we're not just users of a software, right? We're not just putting dots on a map. We're not just creating report figures at the end. We're really a service to the whole project lifecycle, from the proposal stage to the planning stage, the actual execution stage of whatever market you're doing it for, whatever area, whether it's, surface water or remediation or emergency response, we're really a service throughout that entire life cycle, and not just at the end. And so, with the geospatial strategy that we're doing too, it really opened up that conversation and that awareness to, we're not just a function of the organization. We're not just, purchasing software and using it to create that end kind of product there. That's bringing it into, we're not just map makers. We are scientists, right? We are data scientists. We, that the other perception there, that we have that isolation from our data science community, we are doing the analysis as well. And I think, COVID and that dashboard that, everybody's seen and used to look at the analytics piece of that and realize that, geospatial and GIS are part of our whole data science community. It within our firms and external too, in the markets. And so really that, getting us out of that isolation and that data silos, like, was mentioned earlier too, it's bringing that all together and everything, I've seen studies, where 60 to 70% of data is tied to a location. Well, I'll argue that maybe 90+% data is tied to a location. So being able to bring our data science communities in and realize that we're scientists too, right? Is and getting rid of that perception that we're just software users, which we're not. We do more than that.
I think, just to comment here, I think it started with the desktop mapping use 20, 30 years ago. It was map making. Then it evolved to the data collection, many apps, 90+ apps came, and lots of advanced analytics and insights. So it's not map making anymore, it's more.
Yeah, it's definitely more. And a lot of the tools, going back to the technical challenges, web GIS and a lot of the extensions and the tools are allowing us to be data scientists along with everybody else. So, some recommendations, to follow on some of those challenges at the top there, really what I'm seeing, and it's, not just with our challenges, but communication, is the biggest key to, getting over these perception and awareness issues. It's, persistence along with that communication, right? It's not just that one communications, but it's being very persistent about what you're trying to do. So along with that, with geospatial strategies and building a technical roadmap and things like that, we're finding that it's important to also do that change management plan, not just for our technical staff, but also our operational and users, right? And to get rid of that, misunderstanding of function versus service there too. So we're finding that that's important. It's going to be important to push that change management plan out through that communication. The other thing that we're seeing that's helping get rid of the perception of, what we do and how we can help the organization as a whole, like I said, through the whole project lifecycle, is, in firms like ours, there are community of practices, and, there's the engineering community of practice, and there's the surface water community of practice, or the remediation, where we usually kind of like sit underneath all those things, but really to create a geospatial community of practice within your organization so that you can, cross collaborate with those other technical leads and really understand how that coordination can happen. But instead of, just doing that through the other communities of practices, we're finding it's very beneficial to have our own and invite everybody in from the organization, in monthly meetings and in different conferences and initiatives, to really, even to this conference, right? Invite other folks in from your organization to attend this conference through that community of practice.
Yes, just to add here for a little bit. So I've seen a little bit of change. In the past, community of practice was 100% GIS professionals.
Right.
So it's changing to tier 2, adding dual professionals, environmental scientists, GIS specialists. Then tier 3, everybody else, within the company, general awareness. I've
Right.
seen that change.
We have people across our organization that want to be part of the geospatial community of practice. And it's also
Great.
that word too, right? GIS versus geospatial,
Yes.
and really helping folks understand the differences and how, GIS fits under geospatial and open up the concept of what it is we do, right? It's bigger than, GIS is a very big part of it, but it's more than just GIS. And so through the community of practice, bringing other, folks into that across your organization and then having those conversations really is helping our perception and awareness here at Weston. But I'll let Scott, tackle his experience there with that map maker.
Well, I think you pretty much so nail it here, Janine. You really covered it well. I would just add a couple of minor points. I mean, the concept of a function versus a service. One could also look at that as support versus service. In the past, is maybe in that true map maker GIS professional role, we were more of a support to the larger organization. And I think the challenge for us as GIS professionals is to be on that service side, to be a consultant, to build these teams, whether that's through effective change management plans, whether that's through leading or being a part of these geospatial community practices. It's just critical. Our roles are changing. They have to change as the technology changes. And with that, I think it's a funny story, but just recently within a company, I met with the senior business development team, and they told me, man, Scott, we sell GIS every day to our clients. And I was really intrigued and asked the question, well, how's that communication going? They say, well, anytime our clients ask for maps, we say we have an amazing team who could build maps. And much like Janine had indicated, she's trying to eliminate that use of maps. That's what I was communicating to them, that, well, maps is only a fraction of what we are able to accomplish today. But it did bring out the obvious that in order for us to be successful as GIS practitioners, we have to saturate our organizations with geospatial services, communicating the capabilities, the efficiencies that we can bring, be it in data collection, analysis, reporting. And mapping is still a huge component of what we do. Most people know it's maps because our output product typically leads to a map. But I think now with the new web GIS environment, the same concepts, the same skills that we applied to cartography and design live on through web GIS in the design of our web applications, how we approach our mobile data collection tools and design. It is still data, but you still have to find creative ways to communicate what that data means. And so using your backgrounds in mapping and cartography is a natural transition into these sort of newer environments.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it's that persistence, right? It's, it's really persisting. I'll just tell a quick little story. Mehmet knows me. I like to just throw in little anecdotes, but Facebook, right? It tells you your memories and stuff like that. And I opened up Facebook today and it showed me how I presented on a viewer in a relational database management system to do some of our remediation work 12 years ago, right? I'm still pounding the pavement to get into web GIS. And that was, 12 years ago, I put up a paper map, right, in the map gallery presentation about a web viewer, right? So, persistence is the key. And it's tough. And there are many times where I just have wanted to give up and say, we're fine the way we are. We don't have to, evolve every piece of our organization along this modern, technology approach. But I'm too stubborn, so I'm keeping going with that. And yet, just the one last recommendation is, creating proof of concepts. I know we're all probably consultants and on our own time, but you have the data, you have the software, and you have subject matter experts. So if you can create proof of concepts, all the hard pieces are done, and just with this modernized technology to get out in front of your internal PM, internal clients like your PMs and your sales folks, it helps with that perception.
That's great, thank you. And I can also add here that we have solution engineers in our team, in the AEC and environmental team, that can help you with the proof of concepts. So come to us with some ideas and say, we're trying this. Want to come up with this proof of concept, and let's talk about it and see if we can help you. I want to check with the other panelists if they want to add anything before we move to the other topic on the perception and awareness topic. If you want to add anything quick.
Yeah, I would simply say, I mean,
Sure.
Kudos to Janine and Scott. I mean, all that stuff is spot on, definitely spot on. We at GZ have also created a community of practice. I think it's really important because it creates kind of a nexus, if you will, for a place for people to come together around the technology and integrating it within the technical practices. And that's how we're addressing developing our best practices and standards. So we've got, like I said, 200 users, a little over 200 users now in the company, made up of engineers and scientists, but we have a core group of those pure GIS practitioners, and so we do, it's that group, and we meet every couple of weeks to kind of address some of these things. But having that community of practice is a great idea. And the proof of concepts. I mean, quick little story. When I first joined GZA about 10 years ago, I was in a meeting, a marketing meeting, and one of the senior principals asked me, "How do we make money with GIS?" I said, it's a little complicated. I said, get internal focus, external focus. But one of the first things I did to help people to kind of engage technology was a very simple proof of concept app. And that was a Project Explorer, a web application. So people could just look at our project locations on a map out of Deltek. And that was something that everybody could kind of wrap their arms around, understand as a real tangible example. So proof of concepts, that's a big one for sure.
Great, thank you. So we're going to move to the next poll question, another poll question, and this is the last one. And it's about your GIS business opportunities. So let me start the poll question while you're voting. So Scott, you mentioned about your business development manager saying, we do sell GIS, but he meant like we're providing maps. Maybe he or she is not selling GIS yet. So let's see how that will come out. All right, people are voting, and in the past, I know the GIS professionals, GIS managers, we were technical people, but let me ask you, the panelists, quickly while people are voting, do you spend more time in business development internally and externally than before?
Yes, absolutely, 100%. I feel that's where I've moved from a less technical role, even though I love doing what we do, into more of that business development role, so that we can enable, all of our other technical folks to be able to do more and evolve. But that business development role is the key to get all that moving at the base level. That's what I've found.
Yeah, I would agree completely.
Same here.
Great, thank you. Let me stop the polling question here, and let's see the results. All right, so the results is diversification and new service offerings, 35%. And the second, almost with the first, is meeting and managing client expectations. And the third is cost management and recovery. So I think that's good. We've seen a lot of diversification of service offerings at the engineering and environmental firms now. All right, so let's go and talk about it. And I asked Jeff and see what do you want to say about this part here, business opportunities.
Yeah, so I feel like just in the geospatial realm, I feel like a lot of us do struggle with creating new, opportunities within GIS, right? I think that we definitely talked about that a lot of, in the last part with we're just map makers, right? Where I feel like we have a big marketing problem where we should probably start rebranding as spatial stats or something like that, right? So that people don't just put us in this box of only sort of making maps. And when it comes to not actually understanding the maximum ROI for what we can accomplish, I can't remember who said it, but I would definitely get with the leaders of org to say, hey, you know, I think I want to show you a few proof of concepts, right? Let me show you how we can solve this problem, right? If it's in, you know, environmental health or stormwater or anything like that, I think that that would be a huge benefit to having the salespeople within your organizations really kind of push what your capabilities are.
Jeff, I think the key there is asking those people what their challenges are, where are their issues, and let them explain it. And then we're able to come back as professionals and promote how GIS can help solve those business challenges. We don't always have to lead with what GIS can do. We lead by listening and we lead by engaging.
So let me ask you a question here. So do you see yourself as a GIS manager, about all panelists? So talking to the business managers, technical managers, and explaining the GIS, doing internal business development, and then do you typically go out to your external clients with the business development manager, technical manager?
Yes.
Sometimes when we're asked, right? So that's the other piece too,
Be
right?
persistent.
Persistent, yeah. I'm going to that meeting. I don't care what you say, right?
Right.
But I think we're getting there, but I think that is key.
Yeah.
I find more opportunity is created when we are there in the room or at the table or the virtual table, whatever it is.
That's great. And the recommendations part here?
Yeah, I think learning and understanding all the new functionality products and all the new features, because it's a very innovative market that we all kind of work in, and it's very difficult to sort of stay on top of stuff. So as new products come out, it's really important to stay on the ball, because you know, I think everyone here is going to be a subject matter expert in their own thing. So you're going to know more, you know, as to how maybe Locate XT or how, you know, Hub or something like that might improve whatever workflow it is that you're a subject matter expert of. So just being informed and staying on top of all the new functionality, coming to conferences like this is huge, so that you can see, hey, we just put this new function in this, or we just added this, right? So making sure that you're staying on top of stuff so that you can add that value later. Because if you don't know that it exists, then how can you add the value, right? I don't know if that makes sense or not, but I think that that's probably one of the biggest misses that I see in the GIS community right now, is that we all live in these, I know these tools very well, and you know, that's it, right? I don't know, it's just my perception. So I don't know if you want
Yeah, I agree. I agree there. And it's, you know, sometimes when we go into these business planning meetings and they want to know what our revenue is going to be if we start doing this, or, you know, and maybe changing those discussions, because we are, you know, for most of the projects we support, right, they're not just GIS based, right? We're supporting all these other different types of projects. So it may not be in the revenue, but the discussion may be in the effectiveness and the efficiency that we can increase of our operational teams, right? So it may be changing revenue to cost savings, right? We're going to create these cost savings, and that can help in your business planning and getting your foot in the door, you know, of some of these pricings and project planning conversations, and change it to efficiency.
That's a great point, Janine. And just quick example I can give you from one of my customers in the past. So like map making, I mean, GIS in the past, like they were doing maps with desktop, at least 30-40 minutes each map for environmental figures. And then they switched to WebGIS and spending only 5 to 10 minutes. I heard that switching from desktop mapping, figure preparation to WebGIS saved them over $1 million within a year.
I believe
That's a lot of saving. It's not like revenue generated with a new business, but efficiency you gain and money saved.
Yeah, let me buy another set of servers now, since I just saved you all that money, right?
You wish. No, I'll tell you, Over the past year, during the pandemic, one of the things that really helped to propel the visibility and the utility and value of GIS in our organization was the degree to which we started employing web mapping more, because people were working remotely. It became the absolute backbone of our operations, and people started to really see the value, and it really helped us to remain hyper productive and hyper profitable and efficient through that time. And it was very helpful actually in our organization to kind of make that point about the value proposition.
Yeah, and it's super important to understand what the widgets are that are available within Web App Builder or JavaScript API or however it is that you're building the actual web maps. And they are releasing new widgets all the time. So it's almost impossible to stay on top of that stuff. So that's right. I really just try to stay on the Esri, teams to say, hey, like, so what's next, right? So that I can be completely right. So
all right, we have 5 minutes left, so we need to wrap up this part and do the conclusion.
Sure. So understanding law and policy changes, especially within the environment, realm, GIS can help with the change management issues that some organizations have, right? All these admin changes in the White House and all this other stuff, these laws are constantly changing. So how can you leverage GIS to sort of help understand where a jurisdictional waterway is, where, what exactly are you having to do in the field, right? What does all that stuff look like? And how can you use imagery analysts, or how can you use some of these other tools to really help understand what you're going to have to be permitting, right? And there's a lot of really great workflows out there that that a lot of people have implemented, right? So yeah. I just kind of wanted to briefly touch on that too.
All right, that's great. I think good recommendations here, and maybe just briefly about the communication part. So you may have seen this at the plenary California project here, combating climate change and achieving 30 by 30. So how they've been doing it with Esri support. I think there's some consultants helping them. So it's a geospatial platform and lots of data sources there. And you need to understand the technology, data, and the science there. So all together. So that's why like communication and collaboration is great important there, because only technology cannot solve the problem. You got to have the science, you got to have the understanding and executive support. And Janine, if you want to talk about this part here.
Yeah, and I think the stakeholder communication that was mentioned back on that business slide, it's really important, I think, to leverage that web GIS and to create that client, internal and external client engagement, to show them, and this goes back even to the proof of concept. You have the data, you have the tools, you have the subject matter experts, showing them how these story map applications, whether it's an experience builder or whatever product it is, but being able to help them communicate the status of their projects and where they're at with things within the project, either to the public, which is extremely important in our business, to help our clients communicate to the public what's happening, right? But also to maybe their management or their other stakeholders, instead of them, before we used to click, layers on and off in a viewer, which was great. But the story map applications really help to put that text and those other visuals and the analytics, right, to connect us even more with the data science community, but show how the analytics can play into that, but allow for that communication a lot easier.
Yep, great, thank you. And then just another expectation I can show you here is digital environmental impact statements and virtual public stakeholder meetings. This is something real now. AECOM is doing it. So it's also an expectation, and it's a new business development opportunity there. So we have only 2 minutes left, just to wrap things here. So the digital technology is evolving, and the location intelligence GIS is helping a lot with the digital transformation, and geospatial infrastructure is the great foundation. with all the new technologies coming along. So the final recommendations that I've seen in the industry, how environmental consulting firms leverage GIS is with these, with the strategy plans, using modern technology, and with the integration change management plan and structure and partnership with Esri. These are the final recommendations we have here. Any final thoughts on saying within last minute?
I'd say make sure that you understand what your capabilities are and what the capabilities of your staff is. And definitely leverage as much training as you possibly can to kind of keep up with our extremely innovative industry, for sure.
Great. Thank you all for attending, and see you next time in the other events.
Thanks,
Follow us.
Mehmet. Thanks, everyone.
Take care, everyone.